Thank you for the very interesting information, including the Kairos report. I think everyone now has a good idea about the Chinese outbound market in general and also specifically to Europe. I say that because I see a lot of incoming questions on my side, so what I am going to do is address a number of questions now. Because we will not be able to finish all of them, I will also try to combine some questions related to the ones already submitted before the webinar. Some of the questions overlap and I will invite some comments after I address those questions. Earlier you already mentioned that a question came in about whether Chinese are interested in science and whether they are interested in beaches and beach activities. I would like to answer this question by saying yes, they are. In very recently released reports, we learned that Chinese travellers are very interested in nature and also aquatic and beach-related activities. But what is important for our audience to think about is how much Chinese associate faraway Europe as a destination for such activities. And also, where are you located in your region and what kind of activity or service you are providing? How much Chinese will associate you with beach and also sand and sun? So by understanding this and also thinking it is true and also get more research, you will understand how to position yourself because, as earlier, it was mentioned that Europe as a destination, the topic beach is not a main attraction for Chinese tourists. For them, it is not important to always visit in the summertime. Chinese also travel outside of the summertime, especially during the Chinese New Year and also during the National Day Golden Week. You can find out which activities to combine. You can combine the resources around your destination, thereby still promoting sand, sea and sun and beach activities as a small part of your package rather than focusing on them. I have 2 or 3 questions that are actually quite relevant and similar. They were asking about statistics, especially asking about numbers for the split of FIT and group travellers coming to Europe, and further asking beside the Chinese peak travel seasons, what about the other times of the year?
One fact to mention is, of course, that Chinese tourism statistics are quite tricky, and so the question, how many different Chinese persons are represented by these 11.5 million arrivals in Europe, is not easy to answer. But what we can see clearly is that the percentage of FITs is growing from quarter to quarter every year, and that in most European destinations, more than half of the arrivals are now self-organised travellers and no longer package tourists. One of the good things about the Chinese outbound tourism market is that the Chinese travel patterns currently also have a seasonality, so there are also more Chinese tourists coming into Europe in the summertime than in the other seasons. But as many Chinese do not have organised paid holidays yet, they are less bound to seasonality than we are, and also, as we said, they are less bound to only travelling if the sun is shining and the weather is warm and the water is warm enough to swim in. Therefore, there are famous Chinese New Year and October national holiday, Golden Weeks, where some also use the opportunity to come to Europe. This year, Chinese New Year fell on a date where it was easy to take 10 days of holiday with just 1 day of absence from work, and then they come to Europe. In many cases, the distance is too far, and if you only have 1 week to spend 1 day flying to Europe and 1 day flying back to China, many Chinese do not see this as effective. Therefore, we see small peaks during the Chinese Golden Weeks, where all China has a week off. But it's not as important as it is for the Southeast Asia or Australia. For Europe, it is much more the question, what is the reason to travel? You can do shopping all year, you can do photography all year, you can attend events all year. So there is no clear seasonality pattern for the Chinese customers, as you would have them for, let's say, Germany or French visitors, especially if you see that not all Chinese travellers are only coming here for leisure.
I also have a question here asking specifically about Chinese tourists travelling to the northern part of Europe. People are asking the question, what are the key drivers for Chinese travel to Northern Europe? I will start with some answers from my side. COTRI is continuously monitoring the 60 main destinations for Chinese travellers. We monitor arrivals, but also look at how they travel, FIT or in a group, or where they are from in China, the reason for travel, etc. So yes, I agree with you that we are actually seeing in the past years the Chinese arrivals to the northern part of Europe growing very strongly. So probably the answer in short is that pretty much for the Chinese a new destination. So probably the answer in short is that it is pretty much for the Chinese a new destination. As you can see from the figures, it is a new destination. Of course, Northern Europe has always been there, but for Chinese, as they have come to France and Germany, the major destinations in Western Europe, they are starting to look further. They are looking for new destinations, and what we observe, especially in our customised ethnography, is that there are a lot of mentions of Northern Europe, about Finland, about going to see the Santa Claus village, and also mentioning seeing the snow. So, it is kind of a hot destination as well. It is more like a trend. Another point is that, as we already mentioned and also showed the data, while last year for Greater China the arrivals actually decreased by 5%, the rest of the world had more than an 11% increase. From our data, we can see that Finland, for example, has gained 30% increase in 2016 compared to 2015, and for example, Iceland had a 40% increase last year, and Norway got 37% increase last year. Also, Baltic countries like Estonia got 11% increase, as well as Lithuania. And the list can go on. All of them got a very strong increase from the Chinese market. So, while the Chinese travellers are slowly moving away from the Greater China region, we definitely see other parts of the world have an increase. Again, for the northern part of Europe, we need to also consider the major events that have negatively impacted the Chinese travel, like the terrorist attacks and also the refugee crisis information that the Chinese market received last year. All of that information has moved Chinese travellers to seek new destinations, especially ones that are perceived as safe